very interesting. I've worked both in private industry and I've worked for government. In the government, I worked in the budget office of this very large city in Texas. In private industry, I've worked for nonprofits who were going under. I've worked for companies in the private sector that were either profitable or going under. So I have a pretty wide variety of experience in the economics of running a business and of owning a business, which we do own. And I'd like to ask you, I know from what I've read and from what I've heard from Mr. Schweiger, that the answers to all these economic problems and the debt is not going to be one answer. It's too big just to say, well, if we do this, that's going to fix it. It's not going to happen. One of the things that happened repeatedly in my career in both the private sector and the public sector was when businesses or governments got out of alignment and started spending too much, which is easy to do in both areas. They set up zero-based budgets, and every department would have to come to the budget office with a zero-based budget. And the budget was detailed and determined not only to the current budgets of each department, but if you had 5% more, what would you want? And if you had to cut 10%, what would you cut? And this was very useful in determining a budget for every department in the federal government. I know it would be difficult, but it gave the people on the ground in the departments the ability to say what's important and what is not. What do I need to have and what do I not have to have right now? Would that help to start getting rid of some of the waste? We're going to go first class flying on all our airplanes for every government official in DC. Is that wasteful? Do we need to have to pay for that? This kind of stuff in every department could perhaps start getting rid of some of the problems. I also think you're right on Obamacare. Healthcare should be portable and it should be able to be bought across state lines. That would help because you increase your competition. That drives down price. What is your comment on that?
Well, ma'am, you hit on a lot of points, and I can relate to them. In business, in my career, we work with business owners all over the valley, all over the country. And you have to understand profitability. I think one of the reasons I was able to be as successful as I was in retirement at age 54 was because I understood profitability. And you have to be very careful where you spend your money. It's easy for Congress because Congress is not spending their money. They're spending your tax dollars. And they've got quite an appetite for spending money. It's got to be curbed in. And I think it's so important for you to pick the right candidate to send back there that's willing to draw a line in the sand and say, no. You're going to raise the debt ceiling? No. Absolutely not. You want to tax the American people more because you think that's going to stimulate the economy? That does not stimulate the economy. We will create more tax revenue for the government, but we'll create it through financial and economic recovery. When we have recovery, more people will work. And let me tell you, everybody talks about unemployment. No one talks about the other big problem, and that's this. There are so many people out there that are employed that are making so much less than they've been making. And that's why the housing market in this town is on fire for homes 300 and less. But homes above 300 or second homes, they're just sitting there because the people don't have the money to buy them, even though interest rates are low. Travis makes a good point. If the government is going to raise interest rate, we're going to go bankrupt, and we're going to go bankrupt quick. And that's why the interest rates haven't been low, and they haven't been low for years. And anybody that looked economically knew it wasn't going to be low for years. And I've bet against that in my investing for the last 15 years, and I've been right every time. It's simple to figure out. So I hope I answered your question.
There's millions of places to cut in our federal budget, and I mean, there's not enough time today to talk about it. The root cause of what I believe was the question is something called baseline budgeting in this country, and this principle of use it or lose it. I know people in this room have worked in government. I've worked in the military in government. And you know, every September, we get told to go consume jet fuel and vehicle miles and pay periods and everything else you can imagine so that the bank account hits zero at the end of September and resets on October 1st. We have to stop rewarding those who work and run our federal agencies for spending all of our money. That's their job and their goal, the way our system is set up today. If they don't spend it, they're doing something wrong and they don't get the budget back next year. So that's a huge problem. And it is one area that, yes, if you, federal government-wide, if you stopped that practice alone, you would save billions and billions of dollars on a yearly basis. So there's all types of opportunities to save. That's one that I feel like I'm a champion of. I would love to go to Washington, and if I could do one thing, it's in that practice in our federal government of use it or lose it.
I would say that, you know, with every crisis or challenge comes an opportunity. And, you know, I left the federal government several months ago, and I can tell you that already with the budget cuts that have already come through, I was already seeing a change in the culture of government employees because by necessity. And I think that using that as a hopeful trend and a change in culture as we institute baseline budgeting, as Travis says, we'll see that change. I mean, I don't think that a congressman, as successful as he may have been in his personal life, is capable of knowing what is important in every single government agency. There's so much going on there. I think that we have to really expect our government employees to, as a matter of course, understand that this is taxpayer money, and with every expense they make, say to themselves, is this worthy of taxpayer expense? And I think that, as I said, I feel that sort of culture is beginning to take hold just because of the budget cuts that have already come through.
Thank you. Whether we say it's zero-based budget or baseline budget, it still goes down to responsibility. Like Travis, I'm a military guy. And so when you shrink that budget down to zero to add that or more next year, that's the poor choice. If you don't need that money and you're doing it, that's not good leadership. So what I would say is this. The threat on the table right now is another $500 billion to the DOD. Sequestration is the fancy term. They've done half of that already. I think it's 480 billions. It's just half a trillion right now that we're cut with DOD. We're in a war. DOD hasn't collapsed yet. There's some fat there. So without having never been to Congress, I would say, gee, let's look at all these agencies. Let's look at cuts to the budget and the personnel and see who survives. Okay? And I think it's been said here a little bit, there are some federal agencies that could be pushed down to the local level. Dave Schweikert's a big fan of block grant. I think part of what he's talked about, and others have talked about, Department of Education. Rather than getting rid of the Department of Education, let's push it down to the local level. There may be a point in time we get rid of the Department of Education. But for me, sitting here telling you, having never been in Congress, we need to get rid of this group, that group, and this other agency, I think that'd be disingenuous. But I do know that we can cut across the board, budgets, personnel, and push Department of Education. I would even like to see the EPA set down to that level. Those decisions are made locally are probably be made more effectively. So again, I don't want to get wrapped on the axle on budgeting or accounting gimmicks. I failed accounting a couple times in college, so I'm not going to go there. But again, it goes back to responsibility and paying attention as taxpayers. Thank you.
Okay, now you have 5 minutes for a summation. Or less, whatever.
Okay, I'll take 5 minutes. I do want to thank everybody for coming here tonight. It's a very nice forum. We had some pretty interesting questions, some good questions, and some great answers, I think. You know, we could say this election's about the economy. People are saying that. But it's about people. It's about all of us here, our family, our friends, our neighbors. How we decide we're going to come together and move forward as Americans. We get all the parts and rambling, but we're all Americans. We've got to move forward and get beyond this crisis, because we're in a crisis. We need to know in our heart of hearts that we believe the government has gotten too big, too costly, too ineffective. else we need to ask. We need to ask ourselves, if we believe as our founding fathers did, the government is best which governs the least. I'm biased, I'm an Arizona guy. A lot of us are here because we want to be here. Probably all of us are because we want to be here. But as Arizonans, we've got a rich tradition of independence and self-reliance. We don't need or want the federal government in every facet of our life. When problems arise in this state, we stand shoulder to shoulder and face them head on, deal with them, get beyond them. So in closing, I would tell you that I'm very proud that my roots in this state and this community go back over 150 years. I feel grateful that my wife and I were able to raise our family in Arizona. And I feel blessed that after 6 different combat tours, Iraq and Afghanistan, my son and I made it back home safely. He's also a combat vet. I know how precious our liberty and our freedom is. I know it's worth fighting for. I know how to lead. I've got the experience. I'm ready now to serve in Congress. I appreciate your attention. I thank you for your time. And I would ask for your support.
Very much for having me here tonight. I hope that you heard enough to distinguish each of these of the well, I guess the 4 of us now from one another. I think that we've talked about the issues and we understand that we have challenges and we have to really tackle those challenges and get things right in this country. But on a political level, I wanted to talk a bit with you guys about what we're facing in this election. For those of you who are Republicans, this district was carved out by Democrats for Democrats, and it's going to be a difficult district for a Republican to win. And in this political environment where we have a president and a Democrat Party that is engaging in a lot of micro-targeting, the war on women, their supposed ownership of the Latino vote, and the announcement on Friday to sort of buy that vote, etc. We're going to have to face this election and the way they do in many ways, and sort of beat them at their own game, if you will. And so what I would submit to you, that in this environment where there is this war on women and this supposed fight for the Latino vote, in me you have a candidate who steals away that narrative. I'm a woman and I'm Hispanic, and yet you also have someone who plans to very energetically defend our values, the free enterprise system, the morality of that free enterprise system. And I would submit that because of who I am and my background, it'll force the Democrats to actually speak to the issues, and in that environment, I think we'll win. So I encourage you to visit my website, leahforcongress.com, and read a little bit more about what I'm about. Send me an email, I respond to them, and I'm happy to chat with you about any issues, and I just ask for your support and your prayers. Thank you.
I think it was carved out by Democrats for Democrats. We're 31% Democrat in this district, 33% Republican, and 35% independent. A conservative Republican can win and represent this district successfully for everyone in this room, just like a Democrat can. But we have to nominate the right candidate, the candidate who will go to Washington with the right idea about working across the aisle, regardless of what letter is after the other person's name, or what constituent in this room has a problem. I am that candidate. I take a lot of pride in, and I almost answered earlier this question about who our favorite politician is, or I forget how it was phrased, but somebody politically who has influenced us. I almost said Joe Lieberman. There's a man whose principal was a Democrat, didn't like what he saw going on in his own party, so what did he do? He changed to be an independent. And it was very respectable how he did it, and the way he did it, and he continues to serve in the Senate today, and he's a good senator. And there's Republicans that know how to reach across the aisle and sit down with Democrats, believe it or not. There's a few, I see somebody laughing back here, and actually work for solutions, realistic, achievable solutions. I was the first one in this race. We've knocked on over 10,000 doors on my campaign. We've outraised everybody. I hate to say that, but it matters. We have to nominate somebody who can win the primary by a wide margin and then go on to win the general and represent the people of this district well. I hope I am given that opportunity. It's been a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you very much.
The only thing between you guys are going home. I'll try to be short. You know, I really don't care if you're a Democrat or an independent or a Republican. I bet I've talked to 15 or 20 Democrats who said they're going to vote for me. And I've talked to a lot of independents who said they're going to vote for me. And don't vote for me because I'm a conservative Republican. You vote for me because you honestly believe that I'm going to represent everybody in this room, not a particular divisive group. I pledge to everybody in this room that I will take my past success and everything I've done, and it will carry over, in spite of what someone said. It does carry over. The best predictor of future success is past success. Don't ever forget that. And I will make sure that we make America, we make Arizona, and we make the entire Valley of the Sun a better place for all of us, all of your children, all of your grandchildren. That's why I'm doing this. I don't need to do this. I'm not looking to make any extra money. I'm not looking to waste any more time. This is a very important time for everybody in this room. We have to have economic recovery. We have to build and restore American greatness. And it takes great, special people, just like it has from the time we had our American Revolution against the British, the War of 1812, and all the difficult things that happened to this country, and all the great odds we faced so many times. Special people rise to the top and lead us to where we have to go. I would certainly appreciate your support. I appreciate your vote, and I promise you one thing: if you vote for me, I'll beat whatever Democrat they put out there. And more important than that, I will represent everybody in this room. I don't care what party you belong to. I will make this a better place for everybody.